call to order the fire district board meeting of April 16th. Chris, will you do the roll?
That's the big Roerd. Here. Beckman.
Here.
Starring.
Here.
Verplank.
Here.
Phelps.
Yes.
Meridian.
Yes.
And Miller.
Here.
Okay, can we have approval of the agenda, please? Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll support. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Everybody disapprove. Okay, moving on to approval of the minutes of the March 19th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 19th, 2018 meeting.
I'll support. A motion by Meridian and support by Starring to approve the minutes of the March 19th meeting. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're at public comment of agenda items only. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Would anybody like to comment? Okay, moving on to request for payments. The floor is yours, Peter.
Well, the bills.
Oh,
Bills.
all right, well, how about we pay the
Pay the
bills?
bill, I make a motion to pay the bills of $70,376.76.
I'll support.
There's a motion by Phelps and support by Rory to pay the bills. Is there any discussion?
The legal costs, are those all associated with the letter to the township, or those, the Bloom Suckett and Morgan legal fees? Or is that ongoing monthly, or how does that?
It's a monthly bill. The one, I'm assuming the one for 22.
2408?
Yeah.
2408?
Well, part of it's for the
Yeah.
live fire training center.
Well, some of it, there's 234. There's probably about $300 in the live fire training center, then there's questions, there's the IFC issues, looks like a big hunk of it.
Okay. How much an hour do they charge us, do you know?
135?
Varies. If you look at that, you'll see that it varies based on what it is. A lot of it is it's 175 in
175?
general, but then he's also got some on here.
No charge.
Charges reduced as a client courtesy.
Okay, that's good enough. That's
Client reduces a, you're welcome to look at it.
Yeah, it's here, because I have all the bills here every time.
Cheap one.
Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor of paying the bills in the amount of $70,376.76, please say yes.
Roll the
Oh, I'm
vote.
sorry. Go ahead, Patty.
Did everyone, I'm sorry, my
I'm sorry.
just a real quick, maybe it's more in the financial report, but I noticed that the cost recovery projections were way down.
Yeah, I'll get to that here now.
You will get into that in the financial report?
Yep.
Okay, that was it. And professional services for around 800, I assume that was legal and different things. I remember trying to put that.
Yeah, that, I mean, you don't have a question on the individual bill, that's,
No, I guess
Okay.
not, I'll wait till.
okay.
Okay, I'll look. Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Roerd.
Yes.
Beckman.
Yes.
Starring.
Yes.
Verplank.
Yes.
Phelps.
Yes.
Meridian.
Yes.
And Miller.
Yes.
Okay, can we have a financial report? please?
Okay, the financial report. As of yet Friday, we've collected 96% of the revenues that we had last projected. The only revenues basically that are really left, we're on the far right-hand column, are the, basically the two cities and the townships, and those are all delinquent property taxes, which we will get paid from the county treasurer probably sometime in mid to late June. So those revenues are basically guaranteed. And then our fire services, you know, we've collected more than $2,800 more than what we originally projected. Plan review fees were $400 over. That cost recovery, that $5,500, is that your question there, Kathy? That's actually $5,500 more than what we originally projected in revenue.
But
So-
compared to last year, we predicted 19,700, and then this year's budget was only 55. I just, my
Right.
question was, how come we're having so much less cost
I
recovery?
think a lot of it's because we haven't had the accidents
The
out
type
on
of calls, I guess.
196.
Right, the activity on 196, because the construction really peaked some of that.
Okay.
Plus, it was weather-related. And typically, when we project grants and cost recovery, we put in $1,000 per year, because we don't know what the revenue stream or the reimbursement will be if we're successful in that.
Okay. So it had nothing to do with the fact that we're at dispute with the township about cost, nothing like that. It was just we predicted less this year. Okay, that's all.
Grants and donations, you know, we're basically, there might be a little bit out there left for somebody to write us a check, but basically we're just flat right now. Interest, you know, that's about where we're on par to be at. In sales of assets, we sold $1,000 worth of stuff more than we originally projected. So overall, we're in good shape. Those top three of the tax revenues, those are guaranteed. We will collect those. We'll have them by the end of the fiscal year. And now we get to the expense side. Overall, we're at 73% of the budget, which we're online, but we'll have to have a budget amendment probably in the June meeting. The board salaries is all online. The salaries are all okay. The one that's out of line is the operational wages. You know, it's right now through the March payroll, we're at 98%, which we're gonna have to make an adjustment there. Fire calls, we're at 82%. Medical, we're at 70%. The training budget's right in line at 75%. Special events is at 83%. The payroll taxes are basically right on line. The insurance is on line. So all those are wages up there. The ones that we really have no control over, and after this weekend, they're really out of line, are the fire and medical calls. Because I think Greg said we had 21 calls over the weekend, so we're gonna have to shift money at some point when we get closer to the year end. Workers' comp, that's basically paid in full. The retirement's at 75%, that's online. The operating wages, operating supplies were 57. Professional services, you know, we're over budget right now. Basically, that's the legal fees, that's paying the city of Saugatuck for me, the cleaning persons, and a few other small items here. So basically, the overrun are our legal fees over the last year. Testing, repair, and replacement, basically that's cost for testing, pump testing, ladder testing, hose testing, and any kind of replacements we have to do. Station tools and firefighter tools are kind of self-explanatory. The phones are basically, all the trucks have modems that we have a monthly bill. The officers and the career guys all have cell phones that we pay for, and that's at 76%. Utilities, we're at 84%. Hopefully it'll warm up and the gas bill will go down, but we're probably going to be a little bit over by the time we get to the end of the year. Hydrant maintenance, we really haven't spent anything this year. Repair and maintenance on vehicles and the equipment, we're only at 60%. The boat maintenance, we're at 96%, but they're still working on it. There's going to be more cost to come. The radio pagers for repair and replacement items at 70%. Building repair and maintenance at 75%. The building security at 25%. The dues and subscriptions at 18%. Office expense at 85%. Technology basically is paid for. It's spent out for the year. The same thing with building inspections. Uniforms is over. Turnout gear, I think we still have some more items yet to be invoiced from the vendor. Education's at 72%. Medical supplies 63%. Fire prevention is basically spent for the year. Physicals, I think we're done with those. We're at 85%. The insurance is at 70%, but the insurance is paid through June 30th, so that $6,200 to be allocated somewhere else. The chargeback we'll just leave that alone for now, because we never know what's coming down the pipe, and it's always been under $500. The truck payment's been done for the year, and then the capital items, there's 64,000, but I think most of that's spent in projects with the live fire training and another approval for later today. And a year ago, we budgeted this $51,849 to basically put money not to touch it, to put into our long-term capital budget, and so far we haven't had to do that. So overall, there's still going to be a budget adjustment probably with the June meeting once we know where we're at with our fire calls. So I don't know if anybody says any particular line item questions or.
You said operational wages was 90-some%?
Right.
What is operational wages?
That is additional calls, additional help, like to call in for injuries, sick time, vacation time. It's additional manpower that, we haven't budgeted for.
It's also, it's the stipends, some of the crew is paid, there's the Monday night crew gets a $40 stipend, and then there's Thursday night crew that's also in there. I think it's the weekly stipend when they're here overnight.
That's under that category.
So what's causing that to be so far ahead of plan?
Call volume,
And 21 calls this weekend.
I think you'll see on the stats, you'll see we're up about 25% on calls compared to the same time last year. So that's driving all that up.
Just for your information, Aaron, when we have to call in people, like if there's a fire and people get called in, then they're paid $23. Is that what it still is? $23 an hour for coming in to work on fire. Or if the first responders are really, really busy and we have to call in more first responders for back-to-back calls, things like that, then we have to pay everybody $23 an hour that come in. So that isn't in the regular wage budget.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Pete, you want to go over the budget for this year?
Okay, so we flip a couple more pages. Here's the presented budget that myself, Greg, and Chris worked on here the last few weeks. The first page, we're going to deal with the far right-hand column. It's the 2018-19 requested budget. You can see the city of Saugatuck's portion of $295,000, the township's $612,000, and the city of Douglas is $307,000. And then all the other miscellaneous line items that Greg talked about earlier, we basically have left them in $1,000 or $500 because they're not guaranteed streams of revenue, and we really don't want to base our budget on that. So overall, if we just look at the top three, which are the property tax bills, it's up 5.5% dollar amount over a year ago, and that's basically still leaving everything at 2 mills. I think this is going to be the third or fourth year that we've left it at 2 mills. We haven't increased the millage. It's basically the increase the taxable value and the new construction in the three entities that's added to the tax roll that's new. And the dollar amount it's roughly about $40,000 more in revenue over last year. So overall it comes to $1,219,000. So there's the revenue side of the picture. And then on page 2, we're still at the far right hand column are basically the streams or the expense side. The board salary left alone at $3,000. The chief's salary at $73,500. Officer's salary at $12,000. The career firefighters, which those are the full-time personnel, at $193,750. The operational wages at $52,500. Fire calls at $45,000. Medical at $30,000. Training at $22,000. special events at 11, payroll taxes at 33, employee insurance benefits at 77,100, workers' comp insurance at 32, the retirement at 50, operating supplies 18, gas and oil at 11, 20 grand on professional services, the testing, repair, and replacement at 11,500, station tools 3,000, firefighter tools at 6,400, phones at 11,000, utilities at 13,000. Hydrants maintenance, we're just gonna not even fund that because we haven't used that in the last 3 fiscal years. Vehicle equipment repair and replacement at 40,000, boat maintenance at 15, radio replacement, radio and pager repair and replacement 6,500, building repair maintenance 16,000, building security at 2,000, dues and subscriptions 2,000, office expenses 7,000, technology 9,600, building inspections 1,000, uniforms 10,000, 25,000 on the purchase of new turnout gear for, I don't know, was that 8 sets, Greg? The
6
turnout-
sets, wasn't it?
6 sets, okay, 6 sets. Education at 15,000. The medical supply, 6,500, fire prevention, 10 grand, physicals, 9,000, the general insurance, which is basically truck insurance, liability, insurance at 23,000, tax chargeback, which is if somebody takes more than 3 entities to court and they win to have their tax assessment reduced, $500. The loan payment on the KME is 42,100. The small cap and the long-term cap, we've combined that into just one account now, and that's, we budgeted 200,000. And then 50,500 basically is that line item to transfer 50 grand into our long-term capital fund. So basically that's a balanced budget, and overall the payroll and the fringes make up 49% of the budget. And then the capital outlay, which is the truck payment, the long-term capital, and that capital fund transfer make another 24%. And that's 73%, and then you put insurance in there. Basically 80% of this budget, it's non-discretionary spending. So you have what, 250 grand, and it's what I would call discretionary spending, without starting to eliminate men or wages. So I don't know if anybody has any particular questions, line item questions for Greg or myself, or.
We do have a capital improvement plan, if anybody's interested in seeing that. We developed it 2013.
Have we built in any cost of living raises for the officers and the chief?
Yep, that's all built into those
That's
wages.
what those
and then,
numbers are? Okay.
Yep, and the operational wages, if you notice that line item is, we're tapped out now, we've jumped that up by about $12,000 or $13,000, because Greg, we always had the problem with the career guys or personnel takes a week, with either sick time or vacation time, then we have this void of bringing somebody in off, I guess, the street to fill in that hour, that shift, and that's one reason we're over budget this year, because we've had, basically Greg's making the career people take vacations, and then we have some medical issues with a couple of the career guys right now where we had to bring in individuals to fill the void. Because the calls keep going on. They don't stop because somebody's out.
Yeah, I think that's always going to be a tough one to budget for,
It
because
is.
it's not at your control, so
Yeah.
you do the best you can.
Yeah.
And that's what budget amendments are for, so.
Yeah.
How often do you have to get this turnout gear, 6 sets this year?
It's a good question.
That's a
So
big jump.
it has a 10-year life expectancy. So rather than come to the board, we kind of had that with the air packs. I don't know if you were on the board then. So rather than me going to the board, which I actually did in 13, and said, I need $240,000 for air packs. And the board said, why don't you try a grant? We tried for 2 grant cycles and we got it. So what we want to do is not end up with 30 sets of turnout gear and have the same situation. So we're starting to replace them on the heavy users, 6 at a time.
So that'll be a yearly.
Right,
Yeah.
correct. We decided to stagger that out so that we didn't wait for all of them to expire, because grants are getting so fiercely competitive now that we can't rely on that. So that's why we decided to do 6 a year.
Almost seems like
And they're about
capital
20
equipment.
Yeah, $2,400 a set,
Yeah,
and that's a mid-range one. Some of them go 2,700, some of them are 1,900.
okay.
They're crazy expensive.
And because you have to replace them, this is just a curiosity, can you donate the old ones to people, or is it because they're no good anymore, period?
It's frowned upon. We like try to send a lot of equipment to Mexico and stuff, and the tone is, you're giving us stuff that's not compliant.
That's a liability.
So that has,
It's a shame at the price of it.
you know, for the
Some
last 5
department
years,
can't.
well, what we do is, one benefit is we end up using this as backup gear. For example, like last night, a lot of us, our turnout gear was wet. We can't go in a fire with wet gear. Steam burns will kill us.
Yeah,
We have no backup gear.
so it's good to have.
So that backup gear becomes a temporary 3 or 4 day,
Mhm.
because we can't take this gear and put it in dryers. It's air dried, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I completely, it's like an Armani suit. It's ridiculous.
Cheaper.
It's ridiculous. But, you know, you get what you pay for. You pay $1,900 or you pay $2,300 and you have another 100-degree level of protection for your guys. You know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta do
They're the ones risking our lives, and I'll figure out how to pay for it.
Okay, you done, Peter? Any other questions of Peter?
What was the reason for lowering the boat maintenance so much?
Budget,
We
Budget
spent a lot
planning.
this year.
That we spent on?
you know,
We
we're,
did this year.
yeah, we got hammered, we haven't really done anything other than the pump to the boat, and the boat's 40 years old. So we really wanted to be cognizant of budget constraints like all agencies have, so we try to cut it back.
Anybody else? Okay.
We'll be happy to raise it, Scott.
I know we won't, Scott. Moving on to fire chief comments. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Linus and his team for this weekend. There was one point where they had 5 calls in an hour.
With 5 an hour.
It was just ridiculous. They never had time to get warm again. They were wet, they were tired.
Plus a lot of down power lines and issues. I mean, crazy, just crazy.
Power lines and
Trees and roads.
accidents and trees and
The boating
Um,
incident.
fire.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, we
boating
had a
incident.
boating incident.
And I'd like to add that that was not a sailboat.
But he backed into the harbor, so it's fine now.
Uh,
Okay, we have to approve the fiscal year 2019 budget review, so could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the new fiscal year budget as presented.
I'll support.
I have a motion by Phelps and support by Beckman to approve the fiscal year 2019 budget review budget. And this is a roll call vote.
Sure.
So basically what we know, once you guys approve it, each of the entities need to take to their respective boards to get them to approve, because really, they have to approve it so we can basically have a budget for July 1, so just for the 2 new board members that weren't here a year ago, that's the next step in this process.
And we'll have some paperwork for you to take to your communities, correct, Brad?
Yes.
Yes.
Packet.
All right, so,
Here, can I read the motion that I had drafted, if that's okay? So motion by Phelps, second by Beckman to approve sending the proposed fiscal year 2019 fire district budget to the city of Saugatuck, the city of Village of Douglas, and Saugatuck Township for approval. Does that sound okay? Like what you said, Scott?
Exactly.
Word
is
for
that what
word.
you approved, Beth?
That's what I support.
All right. Okay,
Okay, so Phelps,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Rohrig,
Yes.
Starring,
yes,
Verplank,
yes.
Meridian,
Yes.
and Miller.
Yes.
All right,
Thank you.
So you'll all get a copy of that to take to your respective.
Will it email it or something like that?
Is it ready?
No, we're adding in the grants, grant spreadsheets. We thought we'd probably include a cost recovery, so you kind of see what activity that's happened. So those were something that occurred to me Friday. So then we'll have like about a 6-page little packet that you can present, and it also shows the trends from like when our data went back to 2004, and it will show what went where, how it occurred, what increased, what declined. So it shows the history.
I can send it to, once we have it done, just send it right to Jeannie. You want me to?
Yeah, then it'll go in the packet.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't know.
So I don't know what
They
we
get
have to take, that's why I was wondering, but we'll
Yeah.
talk about it.
Well, I'll provide you a hard copy, and then it'll also be emailed, so.
And if you want Greg at your meeting to explain it. Okay, do you want it just mailed to the township, Chris?
That'd be great.
Okay. So kudos to Linus and the A-team. Way to go, they broke a record. Never had that many calls. All right, so moving on. Jude?
I wanted to echo Jane's comments. Linus handled a lot of crew calls this weekend, record his crew. One thing about Saugatuck I'm proud to say is we never say we're not available. I mean, we had 3 calls going at one time. Other crew members had to come in. There was so much activity, you couldn't possibly have resources in 2 or 3 different areas. Plus the roads were pretty dicey. Good thing was traffic was down, so thanks to you, Linus, and the whole crew. It was, let me tell you, it was 14 days of brutalness. And yesterday was a culmination of a very difficult 2 weeks. We got it done.
I didn't ask, but what was average response time over the weekend, considering the weather?
We don't have that data yet. I would say probably from what I saw was just about, almost just under 7 minutes on the ones that I okayed this morning.
Still commendable.
Yeah, some of them were, you know, like one fire was 3 minutes. The fire Riverside Drive was just under 5 minutes. And that was pretty
That was
good.
pretty quick for the winter.
But the proximity, you know, and it's almost, there's so many calls, you're leaving the station going from call to call. So response times were pretty good, but I hydroplaned down Old Allegan going to the PI, and I was doing 32 miles an hour. And we had one very lucky patient who, her car was severely damaged, and she virtually walked away, right, Linus?
Yeah.
She was transported, but somebody was watching out for her.
That's one of the ones through the window.
Yes, the limbs were through the window at her face, and she fortunately did this. I really don't know how she came out of it.
Yeah, that
So
tree
we're
was
really
right
glad.
in the
No
driveway.
airbags. It's crazy. Further thanks, real quick, thanks to Eric for sandpaper and all the amenities for the fireboat at no charge. That saved another huge amount of money plus time savings on getting the boat done. And last but not least, thanks to Marilyn, we got back at about 10 o'clock last night, had to repack all the hose at the station, and Marilyn had an ungodly amount of pizza they were waiting for us, which had to cost the national debt. And thank you.
And all the favors.
Thanks for thinking of us. Okay, we are at call activity stats. You can see year-to-date, April, that's a current number, so 48 calls in April alone, and we're at the 16th day of the month. So the call volume really went up there.
And the numbers you compare to 51 and 64 for the 2 other years, those were the end of April. So
Yes.
you can see where we're going.
That make sense? You can see we're up about 25% on calls.
And the reason for
Keep in
that?
mind that 2016 was a record year.
The main reason for that, well, the 21 calls this weekend certainly had an impact. All our call response is related to weather, a big part of it. plus an aging population. In this situation, it was weather. This is for March. Next month, you'll see under 800 series, severe weather, you'll see more calls entered in that category. 300 is your EMS, 300 series, typically 60 to 70%, so that's about right in there. A lot of fires. We had a 2-minute stop at Shangri-La on a fire. We were there in 2 minutes and stopped it. You'll see that on a saved response. The guys had a dryer fire in Saugatuck City. That was a house save. And of course, last night, that was a house save. So they had tremendous responses. A lot of fire activity. Motor vehicle incidents, we're at 21. MVIs, as they're known, by month, round is 2018.
And if you look at number 4, the month of April 13 for 2016, that was because we had kind of the same weather as we have now. So one freaky weekend in April caused a lot of accidents out on the highway due to this weather. So
Yeah, it was nice of everybody to stay home this last week. Be a nuisance. Although there were a lot of people in town last week.
Call volume by area, broken up north of Saugatuck, Saugatuck South, which is the bridge, Douglas. I don't know why Douglas is spiked up so much, but it is what it is. Grace of Douglas, holding about 10 calls, and you can see the rest of the activity. I-196 usually represents 3 to 6% of our calls. We're at 3.4. Outside area would be your mutual aid. That's a number we'd like to see down, Grace of Douglas, and we're at 2 in April so far. March was 4. Tremendous spike in overlapping calls. For those of you in the audience who may not know, overlapping call is any call that occurs within an hour of another one. You can't just say, I have to go to the other call, they're more important. You've got to staff that. And more activity on overlapping calls is occurring in our fire district. That's one reason you guys pay a lot of money. That's what's happening.
and this past weekend we added 15 to this category.
15, right?
Yeah.
Over the weekend.
Yeah. 15 out of the 21 calls were overlapping calls.
Okay.
Hopefully, Linus, you haven't planned anything for the past weekend.
Because you missed it.
Just shows the area with overlapping calls. Personnel response, based on category of person, firefighter, EMS, career training. So you can see exactly who's doing what. Protected property values, you'll see this has gone up because we had 3 saves. I think we had 3 fires in 2 weeks. And they're listed underneath that fire category: Riverside Drive, Warwick Street. That's the last slide. We have one more, fireboard incidents. We almost launched Saturday and no one really wanted to go into the water. But we suited up, we were ready to go in as much as we were hoping not. But we didn't deploy.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it would have been very risky.
Is the jet boat ready?
Nope. It's too cold. We can't even put it in the water. It'll freeze.
Which boat were you?
The smaller one, 2193, that inflatable that's kept on a trailer, that was going to be deployed in the river with 3 of us going out.
May I ask, what in the hell were they doing out there?
It was an offshore breeze out of the east. He thought he could make it to South Haven. And the waves were so bad it launched his steering. Linus talked to him, so I,
Where was he coming from?
He parked somewhere behind Mermaids and he said
No,
that
no, I
they,
mean, where did he depart from? Where did he
well, I
leave
thought
from?
he said that they'd come up from South Haven to have breakfast and they were going back to South Haven.
Gale warnings, so there were gale warnings.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then he lost all steering. It was a.
They don't have eggs in South Haven, huh?
Maybe those are the ones that were recalled maybe. It was a 35-foot pursuit with twin outboards, twin 250 outboards, and he blew a hose for the power steering. And, I mean, he seemed pretty knowledgeable on what he was doing when he got into trouble, because they anchored up right away. And somebody from shore called 911, so of course that starts us going. And he would start making some progress, and then it would like turn, and he'd stop, and he finally must have figured out that he could back up without the motors cocking up to one side or the other. And he literally backed through the piers, and by then Brent and I went over on the north side. And by the time we got over there, he was through the pier heads past the beach line, and he was still backing up, going through the piers, and he got past the basin. And then he finally turned around, and my guess is that at low power, the motors stayed straight, but when he was trying to fight the waves and stuff, the more power, I'm sure the torque of the motors turned him sideways, and then it just would go around in circles, so he backed all the way in through the piers to there, and then I was in contact with Coast Guard Milwaukee group during this, and talking to them on the phone, and you know, they were wanting to know if they needed to deploy their big boat, because it would take them at least an hour to come down from Grand Haven or whatever, get it either in the water or whatever they have to do. And obviously helicopter was probably going to be pretty tough. So, but the guy himself never really felt that he was in, you know, dire straits. I mean, he just kept working with the problem and got it. But he did kind of mention that he probably shouldn't have gone out there.
You said it was a 28-foot pursuit?
35-foot pursuit with twin
Pretty
250s.
robust boat.
That's a pretty good boat.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be too scared on that thing.
Yeah.
But here coming up the river.
but he did great. He maybe didn't make the best decision to go out there, but he handled it himself. He didn't ask for help.
Yeah.
So did he enjoy his breakfast?
I didn't ask him that.
I'm kidding. All right, moving on.
So Marilyn, this kind of answers to response times based on the data. That's March though, just under 6 minutes, so that's where we're at. Give you an idea. Anything under 6.5 minutes, I think is great in this district.
And I think that part of that people need to know is that's your response time once you get the 911 call.
Yes, sir.
Not when someone calls 911. Because we had that for that 2 years ago at the football field. People were, what the hell, why is it taking so long for the fire department? I dug into it a little bit. You didn't get called for about 15 minutes. And then they didn't do the right priority on them either. But after you guys get it, you take it and run, which is great.
I don't want to get sidetracked, but one of the things that I'm trying to address as president of the Chiefs Association is a couple of the guys, Linus and Chris in particular, scan the police. I don't want to listen to all that noise, so I don't do it. But the police are dispatched before us on fires as much as a minute and a half. We have a real problem with that, and it's going to be addressed with the Board of Commissioners.
Not to interrupt, that actually happened this weekend in Saugatuck. They had a wire down on Perryman. And I was downstairs at our house. I heard him, he was already on scene. I didn't hear him get the call, but I think maybe he drove up on it. And he told dispatch to get a hold of the duty crew because the wire was pretty close and he wasn't sure if it was live or not. I mean, he did what he should have done. I come upstairs, changed my shirt, went out, got in the vehicle, left, And I was just up the road when we finally got paged on that call. I mean, that much time had elapsed from the time he said, you better get a hold of the duty crew until they actually paged
It
us.
was almost 5 minutes, I think, if not more.
It's happening time and time again. It puts the police in a precarious position because then they're running in the houses with extinguishers and God love them, they did a great, job on that. But we have to be careful about, they are not firefighters no more than we're policemen. So this is something the whole county is struggling with that we're getting in.
You can see the call from last night, the house fire. Homeowner makes the call at 19:29:46, and we dispatched 2 minutes and 20 seconds later.
Did you guys see that? There's a lot of lines here. So look at call time, dispatch time. What's your emergency? Where's your emergency? I've got smoke in the house. Push the button. We're struggling with this because they have to follow protocol. Well, who's in the house? What's your name? And there's not what's called pre-alert tones in Allen County, so this is another goal of ours to change, is please do a pre-alert tone. Get us going. You can always call us off. Because we're not waiting at the station day and night for the call to go off. We have lives. So we're trying to change this. Not bad until you have a fire or a stroke or a heart attack. Then all of a sudden those minutes add up into a catastrophe.
So there's 10 minutes between arrival time and call.
So something to be aware of. Okay. Sorry, can move on?
Yeah, moving on to community risk reduction.
Chris and I continue working at Douglas Elementary School with SDPD on fire prevention, life safety for kids. Right now we're wrapping up our Every Kid Will Know the Address campaign from pre-K through 5th grade. So our goal is to have a pizza party for all the kids that memorize their address at the end of the year. Somewhat more challenging with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Plus we have 365 kids. Chris and I are trying to figure out how we're going to buy pizzas for. Work that out.
Call me out.
But she's going to answer my phone.
Call Little Caesars.
Yeah. Next up, the state of Michigan. As you know, Chris Manos and I are on the Community Risk Reduction statewide task force. Fire Marshal asked me to share this with you. What's significant about it is, number one, what's very disturbing is there's been 44 deaths to date in Michigan, which is horrible. And what does it mean? What does this, all this data mean? Target audience is 60 to 69. That's where the deaths are occurring. So it's good to know data because then we can do something about it. Those are our target audiences for smoke alarms, trip hazards, whatever. And then also we have the time of fire. The most common occurrence at the time of fire, as shown in the stats that the fire marshal asked me to share with you, is from midnight to 6 in the morning. So this is something that Chris Manos and Kyle keep track of the deaths, and the state police and the fire marshal did the stats and provided them to us, and to my knowledge we've never had this before. So it's just interesting to see in 2018 we've had 11 fires that occur from midnight till 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're at 44 deaths. That's the significance of this chart.
Is this just residential fires or is this?
Yeah, it's residential only, and we even went back and backed out like suicides and murders and stuff like that because it's not really a cause of the fire when somebody kills somebody else and then lights them on fire. That's more or less people that don't have smoke alarms in their homes or It starts as a cooking fire and somebody else is sleeping upstairs type of things. But yes, they are residential only.
They're not nursing home fires.
And no, well, if there were fatalities, then they're included if they were nursing homes, but there haven't been any. They've been strictly 1 and 2 family dwellings or multifamily dwellings as of this far.
All right, thank you.
I guess in this street, you said there are 44.
44 deaths as of January 1st, 2018.
Oh, 18. And this is all 2017.
Yeah.
There-
It's hard to get it all, when we put the whole thing, image on there, it's too small, but
Is there an 18 on the Times?
Yeah, go.
The 18's on there. Yeah, there's the 18 starting. It's
so
just
if you
not.
look at that right-hand column on deaths, and you go to the bottom, you'll see 44,
Yeah.
right there. And I do have a hard copy right here.
And there's been 2 so far in April, I believe, that just haven't been updated on the map. So we're actually at 46 since I did this last Friday, I believe.
So the fire marshal just wanted us to share that with you specifically, asked me to. Okay. Great. Moving on to the agenda. I'm happy to say we applied for a grant from Allegan County Community Foundation for the Live Fire Training Center, and the group was awarded $10,000. So that's going to help reduce the cost of that for all the taxpayers, which is a great thing.
Okay, moving on to Beth's.
Captain Betts, as you are aware, has a very ill daughter. They are in Georgia still. She is responding favorably. I believe we sent an update to all the board members. And Mike is down there. He came back Sunday for a quick turnaround, went back down to Georgia. He is working on lesson plans, as we talked about at the last board meeting, on developing lesson plans for training throughout the year. That's what he's doing remotely. If the board allows his unused vacation time and sick time to be applied, he had 17 weeks of sick time.
There is a fundraiser somewhere for his daughter this weekend. It's going to conflict with
Saturday
our-
at Glen.
So if, just put a note out there, maybe just stop by and pick up a chicken dinner, and that will help distribute. You don't have to sit there and eat it.
You know what's tough for us is, for some reason, Ganges had to change that to the night of our appreciation.
I know,
dinner, But
yeah.
we're all trying to figure out, actually, we're gonna.
Just try by and pick up a chicken
Right.
dinner or something,
You're absolutely right. So that's what where we're at with the Betts family. Any questions on that?
And she's doing better.
Better, she's responding to the therapy.
Who knows, the choking has stopped and the, what else did I say?
She is able to eat, she's able to swallow regular food, and her speech has returned.
And her
she's
eyes
able to walk.
Her eyes are becoming back into alignment too.
Keep those updates coming, please.
Will do.
Yeah, she's doing fairly well.
I was just going to say, if I could add one thing. They're also doing a silent auction, I believe, at the fundraiser. So if anybody has any goods, services, artist friends, whatever, it adds up. It really does.
Do you know who we contact for that offhand?
I can get it to all of you. It's Angel from Ganges Fire is doing most of the coordination.
And I need to take some stuff over. If you want to send anything, just let me know.
And then we discussed possibly just passing the boot around our appreciation dinner too, to just make a donation for the family. Seemed like a good way to go about it, since none of us can be there either. So,
Send an email out though for the appreciation dinner, so some of us remember to bring money with us.
okay.
You don't think Bruce will have any?
Bring
Okay.
money.
Get his payback.
Put that in bold. Please bring money.
Okay, moving on to certifications.
Just a notice, one of our members, Kaylee Dorbush, has achieved EMTB status. I mean, that's pretty significant, and on many levels, it's another highly trained medical person. And one of the good parts is we didn't pay for it. She got it paid for from the hospital. So Keely unfortunately is not here, but she's on our Thursday crew and deserves congratulations.
Sure does.
Okay, moving on to project updates.
Floating dock postponed. We've had trouble with contractors producing the requested bids. Al's done a great job. Al didn't want to build aluminum, so now he's re-quoting it because we said we only want aluminum. So the other contractor has not come through with anything yet, so we can't do it, it's too late in the year, so we're postponing it.
Okay, and then the dash cam project.
Well, I think we have plenty of water to float the boat this year.
Yeah. Well, as long as ice doesn't damage that, because the dock is cracking, that's our problem, it's lifting and he won't reset it.
We also have that pipe underneath, right?
Yes, the water main from
You know,
the reservoir, correct. That might be one reason why they don't want to quote it.
Okay, dash cam project.
We do not have good feelings about the company that was providing the quote. There's been a lot of changes since the original quote, so we are postponing that indefinitely because we're not happy with the company. We haven't been able to find anything competitive. So that's off the table.
Okay, moving on to unfinished business, the fire code board of appeals update.
So where we're at with that is somewhere along the line in Douglas, Todd Christensen's position changed, our former board member, changed from a non-elected official to Aaron's now an elected official. So Bill Lefevre said, well, the way this is written, Greg, we can't do it. So I have to start over again on it. And frankly, I wanted to get some of this other stuff out of the way first before I do it. And Bill kindly, said, Greg, you sure about the qualifications on this, And he was concerned that, the qualifications was too strict. So I'm gonna relook at that. He had some suggestions on that. But basically what happened is Aaron Miller is an elected official, and I didn't know that.
And we didn't realize that, I'm
Been
sorry.
appointed, not
Right.
elected.
Well, that's what I had said. You're appointed. And Bill said, yeah, but you're elected appointed. So that stopped the whole thing. And that had changed since we drafted this.
I'm not sure they did, the language said you cannot have it, so we wouldn't have had any representation.
Right, I remember seeing that in there. And that was at the request of one of the government organizations, correct?
No, not really.
No, I think it evolved into that. I think it evolved into not having elected officials on there, having more like a Eric and a Marilyn, where they weren't on the board. But, we'll just have to change that to, we don't have a choice now.
What was
It's
the
one of our
reason, what was the
matters.
reason for that? Anybody know why? Why was it like that?
Why couldn't it be elected, anybody knows?
Because the consensus was between the attorney, some of the chiefs I talked to, we just thought that it would, rather than having Jane on there, we would have a non-elected person. Jane's already on the board, on the council. Roy was on the council, and that's why you were on the council. So we thought, well, we have this pool of candidates as far as non-elected officials, let's go that direction. That's why we did it. And I sent that all out in December. But, things changed because I think you had some turnover.
You could keep the language the way it was, only just say a simple exception, with the exception if both fire board members are
Right.
elected, we have to take one of them. Maybe just add a little line of exception, don't do a lot of work on it, and
Yeah, I don't
resend it
wanna-
to the two cities.
Because how often did we ever use that
That's not gonna
field?
be a common.
We never
thing.
did.
We never used it,
We never used it.
but it's gotta be there in case. Is,
Yes. Yep, we all want it in place.
All right, we'll work on those too. Moving on to fire board administrative rules and bylaws amendments. This one's kind of my fault. I forgot to submit this to the city of Saugatuck. So we'll approve this at our next council meeting, and then that piece will be taken care of.
Okay.
And then our appreciation dinner is Saturday night. It starts at 6 o'clock with cocktails, and it's a bring your own. And hors d'oeuvres, and dinner is at 6:30, followed by the awards ceremony. Okay, moving on to new business.
Can I mention no tuxedos?
I was gonna go casual if that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can wear tux if you want to.
I know, but just for the new members, it's relatively casual and
Kind of dressed casual.
dress casual. That's a good way to put it.
So I can't wear my hat.
No,
We appreciate it if you didn't.
I know. It might work better if you did.
Believe me, it will. That grass isn't growing anymore.
I'll be in Minneapolis for work, so I won't be able
Thanks. And Kathy's gone.
Oh, yeah, it's a nice evening.
It's a great
Fine.
Okay, new business, moving on to funding approval for tanker 2142 pump addition.
So what this is a funding approval form for your consideration to add a water transfer pump onto one of the tankers, 2003 tanker in this situation. And it also will, we have to replace the cabinets that are rusting quite severely. So that's what this funding form is.
So could we have a motion to approve the pump addition to tanker 2142?
Make a motion to approve the funding.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Phelps and a second by Meridian, and I'm pretty sure it was to replace, or to add a pump to tanker number 2142
Yeah, fix the cabinets.
and fix the cabinets. Is there any discussion?
Not to exceed 35,000?
Correct.
Is this was budgeted for?
Yeah, we had it in the cap plan. We had 30,000 in the capital improvement plan. And the cabinets were quoted by Spencer, and then Spencer decided that they could not do it that cheap, so they raised the price, and so the 5,000 would come out of our, really out of our maintenance budget is what we do.
Is there any other discussion? Give a roll call vote, please.
Sure. Phelps,
Yes.
Meridian,
Yes.
Warwick, sorry,
Yes.
Beckman,
Yes.
Starry,
Yes.
Verplank,
Yes.
and Miller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, township response letter to the LFC amendments impact on district operations.
Pass those down. What we have for review and just discussion today was comments from the attorney and myself. And the attorney asked me to reach out to the state fire marshal. There was a reference that we have a state fire code, and I had to wait for the fire marshal to respond back to me because he was in Novi in a conference. So that took a considerable amount of time for the state fire marshal to get back to me. And I knew the answer, but I did what I was directed to by the attorney, and we do not have a state fire code. I'm actually on the committee for the state of Michigan to get a state fire code adopted. That's why we have the International Fire Code. The other code that's adopted by some areas is NFPA 1. There's a lot of references to Lake Town not having a code, but there's never mention of Holland Fire Department. Holland has a International Fire Code. Our township has the International Fire Code. South Haven has the International Fire Code. And Allegan has NFPA 1. But really what this board has decided, it doesn't really matter what they're doing in Lake Town or Holland or South Haven. So, but I know that in the original letter from from Nick, the attorney, there was reference made to Lake Town. So this is just for your review. We had to have a confirmation from the fire marshal that there was no state fire code for us to follow. As far as the letter from the lawyer, if you want, I can go through that. There are inaccuracies in the letter. One of them that really stands out is the reference to Chapter 8, upholstered furniture. And this is how, and I don't mean any disrespect on this or offensiveness, but this is how I can tell the lawyer struggles with understanding what fire codes are. Chapter 8 has nothing to do with single-family dwellings, and it's referenced in there. Also, what's referenced by the attorney is 500 pages of the International Fire Code. Again, I have stated the only thing in the fire code that is applicable is addresses, access, and water supplies. I've said that time and time again. It's in writing, 1025. There's also a reference about Georgia in Steve Cushion's letter. I have the fire code for Georgia. I've spoken with the fire marshal in Georgia. I've spoken with 4 agencies in Georgia. They use the International Fire Code applicable to single-family dwellings. It's adaptable. I'll just read it to you. The provisions of 1025, which I just mentioned, shall apply to local authorities having jurisdiction unless there's a change of use or occupancy, meaning it can be adopted locally, like what we did. So I have to take exception to them saying they borrow a word. It insinuates that Georgia doesn't use the International Fire Code for single-family dwellings. It's based on jurisdictions, just like it is in Illinois and in Michigan. It's the same thing. Also, administrative operational maintenance provisions are applied, and it says it right in the fire code for Georgia. And you're welcome to call the state fire marshal or a number of fire departments down there. That's how I found that out. And that was also responded to in a letter to Steve Cushing. As far as, can we go to the dry hydrants? There seems to be some really confusion on this and misunderstandings. I did not approve 2 pieces of pipe in the water for a water supply. We discussed it, Scott Bosgroff and I discussed it, and I said, boy, how are we gonna move the water from here to there? So there's just clearly some misunderstandings on this, and I don't know what happened, when, and where. Also, for the record, we did not approve anything. There's nothing that we wrote that we approved. And I'm not trying to point fingers or anything. On the contrary, I'm just telling you for the record, we didn't approve it. Chris Mantles or I have never approved a project in a public meeting, nor will we. And that's where I think the problem has come with. I thought we had a great dialogue, Mr. Bosgroff and I, Scott, on the whole thing. I expressed my views, and I even put in a letter. I said, I think you need a fire pump here. This is what I recommend you do. The standpipes on the west side did not allow us to move the water all the way around. And the other thing is, we had quite a conversation with ISO. And I don't know how ISO considers any house greater than 4,800 square feet as a commercial occupancy. So it's 2,000 gallons per minute for 2 hours minimum. What their recommendation is going to be 2,250 to 2,500 gallons per minute. That's a huge amount of water to move. And I have to draft that water out of the lake. I have not seen any details on the dry hydrants. I don't know how many elbows there are. I don't know how much I can flow out of those dry hydrants. I don't know what the strainers are. I didn't get that information. So I don't know what happened. And if, I'm sure we can work this out. For the record, I don't know what I approved. I don't have the construction documents for that. We don't have details on the dry hydrants. So, also, it was real clear, we listened to the audio tape, and it was clear that Chris was talking about the second portion of the project, which was the basin. He never even commented on the lakeside portion of that. They talked about that. It's in the transcripts. We never commented on that. And I've been doing this 17 years. I never approved a plan in public. So I think there's just kind of a misunderstanding. I'd be happy to work with the developer to work out a water supply. And the consent judgment says after consultation with the fire chief, Steve hasn't talked to me about any water supply. So I don't know what you want to follow and what you don't want to follow. But the fact is, we did not approve the water supply. We didn't approve the project because we don't know what flow we can get out of those two dry hydrants because we haven't seen any detail, any construction documents. Plus, I don't agree with the location. And that was discussed. So there's just some confusion that,
So when are you gonna follow up with Scott Bosgraf to talk about these things? Are you gonna do that? He's open to it, it looks like.
I guess that's up to the board.
Okay.
I think absolutely.
Yeah. I think we owe it to the developer to let him know what you think, and the owner. We talked about that the last meeting, that how we get a hold of him. Here's an opportunity to talk to him. I would.
What does the rest of the board say?
Let them know exactly what your thoughts are
But I would think they'd want to follow it. I can't defend the
to
developer wouldn't.
do it. They've screwed stuff up enough as far as I'm concerned. Now we'll go right direct to the builder and the owner.
So who's included in that meeting? I think that's important.
What do you, I don't understand what do you mean, who's included?
You want just Greg to meet with Scott?
What do you want? Do you want to send him, someone hold his hand? What do you want? I think.
I don't
would
think we need
talk
to
him.
send lawyers and
Yeah,
stuff. Let's-
it's definitely not lawyers, because that's not helpful.
I didn't say
We don't,
Yeah.
yeah, we,
Maybe a minute.
So-
the wrong thing is,
I think that Scott has offered an invitation to hear what you have to say. I would document it after you're done, so here's what we talked about.
which I did.
Okay.
It's in my letter, in our other conversations I had, but I'll be glad to do that again.
He is open right here. He is open to a phone call, or he's open to, if you change your mind, whether or not you have, that's fine. He's open to a discussion. I would have that discussion. We owe it to the developer, we owe it to the landowner, we owe it to the people that, are gonna occupy those residences, so.
I guess I would also say, I'm willing, if you just want neutral parties, which Kathy and I did before, to have someone other than just the two involved parties sitting there to listen what's being said. I'm-
No problem.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Minutes is all.
Yeah, take some minutes, make sure, and ideally, if you want to have both sign off, and here's what I heard.
Well, I think maybe that
Well, it's gotta be recorded.
it has to be recorded.
Good.
And I think,
It's gonna have to
you
be.
need to maybe even draft something where you have, this is what we're understanding from the township, this is the understanding, or this is what the fire department is recommending, or the, fire board, or whoever you want to draft. And here's proposed changes, and work it out, and we have to document it all. It has to be in writing, it has to be videotaped, so that if somebody comes back 5 years from now, there is proof of what was said, who said it, who agreed, who didn't agree.
Just make sure that Scott knows that ahead of time, because I think he's just expecting a phone call, so.
Well, and I mean, it's not gonna be the Spanish Inquisition, but I think to cover everybody and to cover everybody's rears,
Well, I think first and foremost, our chief needs to see the plans, updated plans, and what he's thinking.
So the plans you currently have are not the latest plans, because I,
Well, I don't even
Sounds like
know
the
if you
proposal.
officially have any plans
what did he
from
drop off to
Scott.
You didn't leave it.
you? Oh.
Well, that's what I mean. We need to get that,
Nobody asked me that, though.
we need to
Scott
get
Bos-
the plans
Scott Bosworth
directly
personally
from
delivered a
him.
copy of the plans to you or not?
I don't,
That's what it says in here.
The only plan I have is from January 2017,
Right?
and it's this one, there's no dry hydrants on there. We looked at one, but I don't have it. It
Okay.
wasn't left with me.
Well, then
And
it
it doesn't
sounds,
give any construction details. It just shows 2 8-inch pieces of pipe. This doesn't have it. I don't have a plan.
Well, on this thing, it says Scott Bosgraff indicated in a phone call with the township attorneys that he'd be open to further discussion regarding their location.
right.
So let's get a hold of
Yep.
Mr. Bosgraff and discuss what his plans are, his intentions. And then I think as a chief, you need to say, you know, this is what we would recommend according to code.
I'm gonna follow the standard on it, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you
Make sure-
should.
So it's not correct standard.
Right, right.
Or, yeah.
It's not your opinion, it's the code. And I think he should wanna follow
I
that.
would think so.
So should Mr. Ednos be invited as a courtesy as well?
I'm sure he could be
It says,
invited.
or other North Shores representatives, I guess
Yeah.
we ask them who they would like to attend.
But I don't, you know, I think we gotta be careful when you reach out to Scott, that we, reach out to Scott. Yeah, you don't have to reach very far. that,
You're being recorded.
We're not combative.
Yeah.
We wanna work with them, so,
Well,
thanks for coming.
my other question is, should Steve Cushion be involved, or somebody from the township in this meeting?
So what Steve is saying is that the township, and I'll make sure this happens, the township will consider any zoning approvals needed to modify the approved plan.
So that would mean that once Mr. Bosgraff and the fire department reach an agreement, the township would then modify.
We'll take a look at it from a zoning, if it needs zoning approvals. And I've heard that a number of times from Mr. Cushion, that he is open to modifying whatever makes sense. You know, I don't think we've had that discussion yet after 3 years, but at some point, I think when we sit down and have discussion on some of these things, you're gonna find them, I think, a little more open to change, at least I have now that I've dug into it, more open to change than your perception is.
And I would agree with that
I
statement.
think it just takes sitting down
So,
without, too much recording and all this other stuff, and sitting down and just kind of coming to some agreements and.
No, I don't mean any, the recording is for me too, in
I
case
understand.
it's not against Scott or
Yeah.
anybody. It's just, hey, this is what we said, this is what we talked about, where did I go wrong with this?
Right.
That's all this is
Well,
about.
I think we need to avoid is, so 50% of every dollar that goes to this organization here comes from township taxpayers, and then you guys are spending money for lawyers, and we're spending money on lawyers. Let's get the lawyers out of this for a second. Let's see if we can come to some reasonable understandings on some of these issues. I don't think we're gonna agree on all of them. You've already said that, and you're not going to, so that's okay. But let's see if we can't start to get some traction on some common understandings. We have an invitation from the owner of this property. Sit down, let's do that, see if we can address some of your concerns. If there's things we find out that the township should be addressing through its zoning, I'll make a commitment to make sure that this has a process. I can't guarantee I've got all the votes yet, I haven't been to a meeting yet, but, we'll see what we can do. But
so I'm sorry, was that a yes or a no that somebody from the township should be involved in this meeting?
let me ask him, I don't know. I don't know that, I don't know. I think you're gonna tell, what do you
In
think?
my opinion, I think Steve should be there, and I think Craig should be, because that way we can have an open discussion and figure out how to solve
Tell you what, I'll
this.
invite Steve. I'll say, Steve, we'd like you to attend. I don't know if it's necessary, but I'm pretty sure that the developer and the landowner are interested in what this fire district has to say through its chief, and will give it the appropriate consideration because they want to do it right also. That's what I think.
Okay? So Greg, I guess you go ahead and set up the meeting. We'll be here. And then, let's see what happens.
And if he would, I can't volunteer Chris, but Chris and one other person could be there. Chris just
We'll let-
representing
we'll
the
let Greg
township.
decide who's-
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
It's Greg's meeting.
Likewise, I dug a little bit into this whole entrance and exit thing, and that's under consent decree. The
Yeah.
judge said you can have one, but
The what?
the judge said you can only have one entrance and exit to the development.
I never questioned that.
Yeah, okay, in case you weren't. And, but it required them to have some other things in place, like access for the fireboat and helicopter pads and things like that. So a lot of that is kind of baked in through that consent decree.
Okay.
Can I ask, so it seems like part of the confusion is whether you gave approval or whether you didn't give approval, and uncertainty whether you did or didn't?
Yeah, and I think there's just, it's really not clear. And, you know, even the minutes show in the planning commission meeting that Chris Manos did not approve. Chris, did you approve this plan?
No, sir.
So my question is, are there official ways that we give approval? Like, is
Yeah,
there
we
an
give a
official
letter.
approval, letter, approval form?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, this project is nothing compared to Dune Grass. Nothing. And we got that through. And we give a written approval. We don't do it in a public meeting for this very reason. It gets misconstrued or misinterpreted. What did he approve? There were two parts to this. You know, he was asked, do you think this marina is going to add to the impact of the fire department? Nah. What's another 25 slips? I agree with him. But I would never allow Chris to approve a project in public, as I would never do that. So that's just simple act, you know. So I think nothing, let's just start over again. Let's work with it. We worked on this road. There's so many things, because this project, they inherited, I worked on from the beginning. There's some things that are complex here. The size of the houses, and you have a static water supply. People don't even know what that means. You're gonna have a house that burns up real fast, that's quite large, and I've got to suck water out of the lake. What about the zebra mussels? Where's the plan for zebra mussels? Are they gonna do quarterlies that's requested? Annuals, who's gonna do that, this flow testing? I don't even know the diagram and details of the dry hydrants. And I'm sure that was an oversight, that was not intentional. Hey, we thought we had this all clear. I'm gonna take the benefit of the doubt on that. What I invite you to look through the files, we can't find anything, we found one print. And Chris remembers, print wasn't level with us, and I remember that too. Because I'm the one who mainly worked on it. Does that make sense?
I think we have a plan.
Sounds good.
So is that agreeable to all involved? Okey-dokey.
I will work on that.
All right, moving on. We have fire board member photos. The group photo for the website. When?
I'm glad it wasn't
Right now.
And we do that after the
After
public
the
comments and all
meeting.
that, okay.
After the meeting. So moving on, we have no correspondence. We do have some members of the public. Is there anyone that would like to comment? Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and you can put, comment on anything you want. Hearing no public comment. Fire board comment?
I have an idea how you can raise money for that pizza that you need. No, I'm not making them all. There's an organization called Women Who Care. They meet monthly.
My
or no,
wife's part of it.
Yeah, and I am. And
You
if
are?
you do a is it, no, not monthly,
Yeah,
monthly.
every month.
And
Yeah.
they usually take 3 organizations, you go and you do a presentation to them, and it's usually close to $1,000 or more that you
Wow.
get. And we've supported a number of different entities throughout the community and the county. So I would think if pizza's only gonna be $400 or $500, you have something else that you wanna do with the school children.
How about Avery, the rest of it?
And then the rest Avery, I think that, I don't want to say it's going to shoot,
Yeah.
but I think that would be a very successful. And I can give you the name of who you should contact,
Yeah, it's
because a
great.
meeting's coming up soon.
Yeah, it is.
I can get that after the board meeting, and that'd be great. That's great. Great advice, thank you.
Anybody else?
Just as board member, guys, keep up the great work.
Yeah.
I mean, this weekend must have been hell. So
Tough situation.
keep up, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron, Kathy,
Same thing, thanks. Great cat.
Scott,
Ice storms.
Chris? Eric?
Congratulations, Chris, on his appointment to the,
Oh, yes. Don't congratulate me yet.
well, you're there till November, buddy.
Okay, Marilyn? Greg, you got anything else?
Well, thank you, board.
Okay,
Thanks for the help, thanks for the support.
We're adjourned.